Imagine waking up tomorrow and finding that the world's most affordable electric car, cheaper than your last iPhone, is rolling off the assembly lines not in Detroit or Silicon Valley, but thousands of miles away in China. What happens when the car shaping the future of mobility isn't American, but costs less than 2 months' rent in Chicago or Houston? Right now, a seismic shift is quietly underway. China's $5,000 electric vehicles are redefining what it means to go electric. Once, the American auto industry stood as a symbol of technological leadership and middle-class prosperity. Today, as Chinese automakers like Wuling, Chery, and Geely churn out ultra-cheap EVs by the millions, the U.S. finds itself outpaced on price, innovation, and even manufacturing scale. This isn't a distant threat. Even with tariffs and regulatory walls, these cars, and the technology behind them, are already influencing global supply chains, consumer expectations, and strategic policy decisions in Washington. Data shows China now commands around 62% of global electric vehicle production, setting new benchmarks for cost and accessibility on a scale that American, European, and even Japanese automakers can't currently match. The Wuling Hongguang Mini EV, a pint-sized city car that's become a cultural icon in China, sells for less than a round-trip flight from New York to San Francisco. It isn't just popular, it's a business model the rest of the world can't ignore. Meanwhile, U.S. consumers face a stark reality. Few, if any, new electric cars are available for under $25,000. That means an entire generation of affordable clean vehicles is slipping out of America's reach, just as the country faces mounting pressure to reduce emissions and reshape its auto industry. But there's more at stake than the price tag. This wave of inexpensive EVs is backed by a web of government support, relentless industrial policy, and a vertically integrated supply chain, from lithium mining to battery assembly, that keeps China ahead of the global pack. American carmakers, hampered by higher costs and a slower pace of innovation, are scaling back production targets, delaying new models, and lobbying for more protective measures. The gap isn't just about dollars, it's about control over technology, over jobs, over the future of one of America's most iconic industries. Consider the scenario playing out at America's southern border. Chinese companies are exploring plans to assemble EVs in Mexico, leveraging NAFTA rules to slip under tariff walls.
It's a move that could deliver cheap electric cars onto American roads, possibly without the American-made label, but with all the potential to disrupt jobs from Michigan to Texas. For policymakers, it's an industrial puzzle. Should they slam the door shut to preserve what's left of American manufacturing? Or open it just enough to let competition drive down prices, risking a repeat of history when Japanese and South Korean cars reshaped the market in the 1970s and 1980s? The impact is already showing. Only about 8% of new vehicles sold in the U.S. are electric, and for many families, the dream of affordable clean mobility is fading. As China accelerates, America's path to EV adoption slows, stymied by the high cost of entry and a growing dependence on foreign-made components. The supply chains that matter most, lithium, rare earths, semiconductors, are increasingly routed through Chinese factories and ports, further eroding U.S. leverage in the technology that's supposed to define the next century. What does this mean for the average American? On one hand, the arrival of cheap EVs could dramatically lower barriers to entry, democratizing green technology and slashing emissions in urban centers. On the other, it risks gutting American jobs, undermining national security, and locking the country into a new form of technological dependence, the kind that can't be solved with another tech boom or bailout. This isn't just an economic story, it's a question of identity and strategy. America thrives on open competition, but relies on industrial strength and innovation to maintain its edge. As lawmakers debate policy in D.C., as executives strategize in Detroit, and as workers wonder if their jobs are next on the line, the introduction of China's $5,000 EVs is forcing an uncomfortable reckoning. Can the United States afford to compete? And if so, on what terms?
Will America double down on homegrown innovation, pouring billions into new factories, research, and worker training? Will it raise more barriers, risking international pushback and a slower path to vehicle electrification? Or will the U.S. take a new approach, collaborating with allies and rethinking what fair competition and leadership look like in a globalized, electrified era? The stakes couldn't be clearer: jobs, competitiveness, energy independence, and the very definition of what it means to lead in the 21st century. The choices made now will echo for decades, shaping not just who drives what, but who writes the rules for the world's transportation future. Now, a question: is America truly prepared for this disruption? Or is the EV of the future arriving with a Beijing stamp instead of made in USA? Share your thoughts in the comments. Do you believe this path is sustainable for the West, or is it time for a new industrial strategy? The road to the future starts here, and the competition is just hitting the accelerator.